Welcome everybody to the Listing Tools class. This class covers 3 credit categories in Virginia. First one is CE, real estate related. Second is PLE. Those are agents in their first 12 months. That's their elective and their only elective. And then 2 broker management credits so you can pick from. Before I introduce our instructor, Dave, let's go over the rules of credit. If you're receiving credit today, you must be seen on the video feed for the entire duration of class, plus you must be in class the entire time. Your posted Zoom name, I've checked everybody, we're good. And you'll get that CE package in the middle of class. Just complete it and have it back to me within 3 hours after the class, please, in one PDF. I can't take images. I'm linked up to the state, and they just won't take it. So one PDF package is how it works. You can use your DocuSign, Dotloop, any of those programs work perfectly if you upload it. And you must pay attention. You can't be doing other work. If you need to use little girls or little boys room, please do so. And make sure that we don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. Even if you're trying to wait for the break, just go use the bathroom. It's okay. Now let's get started. Dave Oliverio comes to us today with 30 plus years in the mortgage banking business and is currently the branch manager for New American Funding. As a top 1% originator and lending nationwide, he's not only experienced and respected as an expert in the field of real estate financing. Dave is a great mind on all the complexities of real estate loans and credit. I know that firsthand. I've done 4 refinances with him, and my daughter, who is more like your accountant personality, has done 2 purchases with him. He is amazing. An unsung hero, I believe. Dave is also I'm not going to read that part. We're just going to jump on. We're running out of time here. I just said all that, and everybody loves to work with Dave, is proven by thousands of feedback surveys that we receive. So take it away, Dave.
My goodness, very kind words in a tall order. Now, the agents are going to expect a miracle for this next 2 hours.
Well, you know what I like about working with you is that I've worked with a lot of lenders in my time. You are an unsung hero. You never brag. Okay. You never get into the minutia about how great you are. You just do the most fabulous job I've ever seen. I told Ashley, I said, I just don't know how he pulled it off. I thought you were going to owe more money, and you do. You just do these things and you deliver more than you ever say you're going to. And I find that very, very, a very big deal.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Cindy. And looking forward to the class. David Oliverio, I am the branch manager of New American Funding, and I do see some familiar faces. Hello, Lynn. But at any rate, I guess some good news. Probably, about 2 weeks ago? Yeah, it was about 2 weeks ago. We had a 10-year note that was somewhere around 424, the 10-year note. Within a couple of days, it went from 424 to 448, like 2 business days. Boom, went up, rates went up quickly. Since then, economic indicators have been coming out and they have all been friendly. So keeps itching its way forward, meaning lower rates. Now, probably in the last 2 weeks, since we had that reversal, I'd say 90% of the news has been inflationary, like Institute of Supply Management will come up with manufacturing, servicing. There's other indexes. But all of them have been pretty much disinflationary. Now, today, the Consumer Price Index came out a little lower than expected. So today, another good day in the marketplace. So it went from like 424 to 444 to 445. Now we're below 424 again on the 10-year, and the mortgage-backed securities follow the 10-year note. So should be a decent day today. Should be a decent day today. And see what the market is doing now. They're anticipating, okay, the Fed may drop their overnight rate this year rather than waiting for next year. That's really what it's all about, anticipating how the Fed Federal Reserve Chairman's going to interpret this data. And quite frankly, all the data, at least to this point, looking pretty good. So you can never say never. Each day is a new day in the marketplace, and other things could happen. We know we're tied in, worldwide events could happen, but bottom line, looking good today. And it's been a pretty good 2 weeks. I'm going to close this door. Also, a couple other things that are happening, and it could be me, some of the people that I deal with, the agents and borrowers that I deal with, or maybe it's a sign of the market. And you all probably know better than me. You're in the middle of it, and I'm like, I do a lot, but I'm in one office and just hear feedback from the people that I work with. But this is what I've seen over the last 30 days. It looks like the market's opening up. When I say opening, when I mean opening up, we're getting some first-time home buyer contracts with minimum down, like with 3% down. We've taken a couple Virginia housing, the Housing Finance Authority. We've got a couple contracts, 3% down. 6 months ago, 7 months ago, 5 months ago, rarely did it happen. We've taken a handful, like 3 or 4 VA. We've gotten VA contracts ratified. So there does seem to be a change, meaning easier. Nothing's easy, but at least you can win a contract putting 3% down, or win a VA contract. So maybe things are changing. What about, like, that's what I'm seeing. How about any other thoughts?
I can talk about Fredericksburg. Anybody else in Fredericksburg? Anybody? No? Okay, so it's definitely houses are staying on the market longer. And what we're seeing is people are paying some closing costs. There's not this frenzy. And it's just delightful to see, because you're talking to somebody who wants to downsize. And so it will open things up to be back to more of a, what I call a sane. And there, I was on this thing yesterday where, the Fed is now actually thinking about lowering rates a little bit because of the job numbers. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I don't know how you guys are seeing it, but I'm in Fredericksburg, and that's what we're seeing here.
Oh, cool. How about anybody else? Anybody else? Like, you could chime in.
I do the more rural areas. I mean, I work everywhere, but if you go to Front Royal and Winchester and anywhere out, Culpeper, anywhere out that way, it's a lot easier to write a contract and get it accepted, opposed to Fairfax County, Arlington, Alexandria.
Yeah, good point. Although, and even in Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax County, I'm saying, like, a few weeks ago, an FHA contract in Annandale for $745,000 got accepted. We just had one the other day with one of the people that are here. She got a 3% down condo accepted in Alexandria, 3% down payment, Virginia housing to boot. So that was Lynn. Pretty darn good job. And see, this is what also was good, was that full disclosure. There are times that agents, especially in this market, there's a lot of pressure on everybody, where you may say, hey, 3% down conventional, write the contract that way. But then what the buyer's agent does is there's nowhere on the contract where they'll put Virginia housing. So it is a conventional loan, it is a Fannie Mae loan, but it's also a Virginia housing loan. And when the seller, the seller's going to have to sign down the road what's called a seller affidavit. So what Lynn also did, she made it clear, 3% down conventional, then she put Virginia housing. So there was like full disclosure. So 2 weeks from now, when the appraisal comes in and the seller gets some innocuous form, like a seller's affidavit, they're not going to go, they're not going to be highly concerned or what happened, whatever. So that was really pretty good, pretty good. But this what we're going to try to accomplish in today's session is, one, obviously to add value to your profession, two, to enhance your relationships with your current clients, and then some of our classes we do better than others, but the ultimate goal would be to see if we could come up with some ideas that will trigger some new business for you all. That's some of our classes, we do that, especially in those first-time homebuyer classes, where we'll focus like on Virginia housing, or when we do a renovation class, or when we do something unusual like the debt service coverage ratio, or there's a lot of different. This is another thing, not to get off track, but lenders are trying harder than ever because business is way down. So we're coming up with these creative programs that will help move the market. Like an investor loan where there's no income verification. So you do an investor loan, no income verification. Now it takes, before you're going to get a halfway decent rate, it takes 25% down, but really very close to a Fannie Mae 25% down. So there are products out there like that that can help spur this market. Maybe help you find another client. Because in years past, we'll get these people that are self-employed. They've got the cash, but they can't show the income, and they want to buy investor properties, or they already may have, the better way is they already have an investor property, wants to buy another one. Now there's a mechanism, there's a forum for those people to do it that are not showing income on investor properties. So there's really some products out there that can help all of us. Helps us, could help you. I did a webinar a few weeks ago on some of those products. So and going to do one soon again. But your favorite lenders, like we're pretty much, when it boils down to, most lenders have about the same products. It's just how they promote them. So I'm sure your favorite lenders will have them also. Okay, so there's me. Now, these first few slides, the focus on this class, the focus will be on financing, on the appraisal, on financing. This first part of it, Cindy can chime in. I certainly see you all are out there. I've never, bottom line, I've never had to make an interview and compete for a listing. I have agents that I confer with, and they tell me how they do it and how they've been successful. But I've never been there. You know better than me, like what you need to do to get a listing. And Cindy, I believe Cindy 1 year closed 100 transactions when she was in real estate. So she had a pretty good plan. But I think it's obvious we understand the importance of listings. But this is just an overview. So understand the importance of listing. These are some of the things that we're going to go over. Serving the seller client, tools to help listings sell. Yeah, those tools, that's what we're going to focus on, the financing part of it. And then we'll speak a little bit about warranties, getting the word out and what your objective should be. It's just really pretty common sense. Listings are, as we know, are darn important. So listing shortages eliminates home ownership. We know, hey, if we've been around the last year, what's it been all about? You know, it's been all about inventory, right? It's to say it's been a seller's market since COVID, but what, since about April of 2020 now, believe it or not? That's incredible. It's like 4 years ago. That is incredible. It's gone by that fast. But at any rate, seller's market, like we said, things may be changing. So listings represent the first domino in a series of transactions. They move the entire market. And this is also common sense. I think, and you've all been in it, especially in the last couple of years. You know, now listings can get hectic, but you could, in general, what we've seen, they can go on the market. It's easier said than done, but they go on the market and off the market pretty quickly. But certainly easier to handle and better time management than if you were a buyer. Are you there, Cindy? She may have stepped out. So.
No, I'm just coughing.
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
Okay. What we were going to do is, because this market is changing, and you had a pretty good, I'd say, message on how you presented the listing to your sellers on a timeline where they could expect to sell their home, and like timeline, value.
There's a price line. And so what I did was, first of all, I was very heavy in foreclosures. So I did a lot of foreclosures. Okay. I was the person in the breakfast area at the local hotel having classes every Friday, let's say, or whatever night for consumers. And in those days, you know, we were using the newspaper, and we were using, you know, we didn't have all this stuff. So, because I started in '88. So I got a tremendous amount of business that way. And then I did a lot of selling of foreclosure properties. But then I transitioned, realizing that I needed to do, I was always very competitive with myself. So I wanted to do more volume. And that's how I stayed at 80 to 100 transactions a year for many, many years, like 10 years. And it was exhausting because it was just my husband and I and an assistant. It was exhausting, but I loved that. It's probably, and I used to teach foreclosure classes, and we used to teach to consumers and agents, and it was just wonderful. But, you know, every little thing comes with, I think it's important to specialize. But what I did, and didn't do that with foreclosures, they generally would set the price, you know, we would guide and so forth, but they have a different kind of protocol. But I did a lot of resales. So what's the big challenge you have with your sellers? The competition and the price. You know, they may see you as an advocate, but it's a little competitive in that area. So, you know, I'm going to go with the person that's going to sell it for, you know, 100,000 more, right? It's not even reality, but they don't understand that. So I used to walk in the door with a bunch of Xerox paper, a blue, a green, and a black magic marker. And I would sit down with them and I'm saying, here's what we're going to do. Because pricing a property isn't about what I dictate to you. It's about what we come up with. So I would have nothing fancy. I would just pull out the short listings. I would show what the closing costs were on solds, explaining to them that that is the most important comp, not what's available for sale. We don't know what those are going to settle out at. And so what we would do is I'd have them interact. All I would do is draw a black line. And then I would start educating them on the short listing. And then we'd come up with final prices, you know, after closing cost is removed. But I focused on the days on the market because I learned early in my business that people were very conceited and they really didn't want their house sitting on the market. It was like a slap in their face. So I gave them the power to sell, that have that house sell in the best possible time frame. And we're going to be getting back to that because I'm seeing houses, back on the market again, and people still have, that same mindset, but of course they've been spoiled because everything flies off the market. And if you're a listing agent, it's like delicious. So that's what I would do. And we would put them from low to high, price wise, value wise, and we'd mark them with little hash marks and put what it was, the property, address, and then, what it sold for. But then I put the days on the market. And when we were all done, I would say, so how quickly do you want your house to sell? And I got to tell you something. That seller was glued to me forever, whether they were buying or whether they were selling. So you do want to educate them. It doesn't matter if you're in a fast moving market or a slow moving market. I mean, hell, I've been in markets where, I'm not kidding you, we had to learn how to do qualifying and non-qualifying assumptions. Okay. Nothing was moving. We were the kings and queens of creative selling. Remember those days, Dave? We were going nuts. I mean, if you wanted, and I knew if I didn't want to go back and work for a government contractor and I wanted to be in my area where my kids were, because I didn't want to be that far away, I had to make money. I didn't have a choice. I didn't have the luxury to not make money, or I had to go commuting back to Crystal City. I didn't want to do that. So I was really motivated, and that really helped too. So anyway, I think that's enough because we got to, have only a certain amount of time for this class. But I challenge you guys, and that's what I've taught my when I used to coach. That's what I used to teach people, because they gained power in not looking like everybody else. None of my guys ever looked the same as anybody else.
So essentially, you did a price line, meaning, okay, if you listed it, you measured it, you got comps. If you list it at this price, it may take 60 days to sell.
Yeah, here's
This
the
price,
history.
30 days.
Right. You don't even have to promise anything, because the days on the market became the history, and they can see it for themselves. So I never promised anything.
Yeah.
I basically educated them, and then we looked at actives as well. Okay. But we really focused the price line on what had sold and where we could look for those sold properties for their property. And I found it really helped. I found education, and you really got to, and the other thing you got to do, guys, you got to keep running in there like a regular old agent, just never asking and just focusing on talking about how great you are. That isn't going to work. You need to ask them a lot of questions, like, why are they moving? That 50% of the people don't want to move because their kids are situated in soccer, whatever. They got a job transfer. They're being forced to move. They're miserable about moving. You've got to find out what their motivation is. If you find out that, you can work with just about anybody.
Well, good. Thank you, Cindy.
I'm signing off now.
Okay, that's okay. You're taking over this course. Okay, that's okay. Thanks. That was very good. And we'll just skip this slide 8 because I think Cindy covered it pretty well. And then in later slides, we'll talk about closing cost options. Now, markets do change. I think what Cindy went over is what we've seen for many, many years, a stable market. Now, like we said, this last couple of years has been an unusual market for sellers. And we more or less handled this realistic expectation. I think that's what Cindy was just addressing. Listing a home for a price that it will never sell or appraise for. Just real quickly, also, that second sentence, listing a home for a price that it will never sell or appraise for. So I'm sure all of you have had experience in the last 12 months, 2 years, whatever, on either a buyer's agent or a seller's agent or a listing agent. Are you having issues with appraised values? Is anybody having issues with appraised value?
They're coming spot on. They're not above and they're not really below for me.
Yeah, I've only heard of one that was low, and it was from another lender. I mean, and that was, gosh, month or so ago, and that's it. Like nobody has. I haven't heard of anybody, and I usually get a lot of feedback at classes.
Sure, sure. How about anybody else? Jody, how about you?
Actually, one of our other agents had a problem with, it was a VA and the appraiser had used a short sale.
Oh, well, that was bright. I guess I couldn't find anything else.
It's
I
a VA
mean,
too.
Yeah, so that was a bad situation. So then the deal fell through.
oh no,
Well,
that would make me grumpy.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you know that like this is what I thought a major issue, and this was I thought would be looming would be okay, escalation after escalation after escalation over the last 2 years. How on earth are we going to get the appraised value close to the sale price? I thought that would be, I just assumed, okay, that's going to be our challenge in these next 2 years, 3 years. And fortunately, I would agree with, in general, what we're seeing, including VAs. Now, we did have one VA that was slightly lower, but including VAs and the VA appraisers have come a long way over the last, actually since 2013, but we are seeing pretty much spot on. Now, the next thing you think, well, how on earth can you get spot on if the home before the home after sells for more than the home before? So, okay, one goes off the market, the next one goes on the market for a higher sale price. In general, this is what I've seen most likely. Okay, reasons why. Most likely in this market, it was very common to remove the appraisal contingency. So when you move the appraisal contingency, that appraisal may have very well come in low, but yet it's recorded at the sale price. So I do think removing the appraisal contingency is probably something to do with it. And then all cash contracts, and that would help. So, but this is what I've seen. The VA appraisers are trying a heck of a lot harder than, for years and years, you could count on a VA appraisal coming in low.
Or
And
just
some-
be difficult with the condition or something, but now.
Or right, be difficult with the condition. So, okay, put it on the appraisal, then everybody had to scoot quickly. We're not seeing that now, fortunately. So that's the good news. So basically, proactive communication, create a team that you can trust. And I'm sure all of you do that.
Well, something that works really well, not everybody does. They need to. And if there's nothing going on and there's nothing to say, it doesn't matter. Pick a date during the week, Fridays at 10, Fridays at 8 p.m. and make that the time you're going to call. Even if you don't have anything to say, you need to do that with your sellers. Okay. You need to do that with your sellers. Carol, you have something to say?
Yeah, something that, VA appraisers have been doing lately is asking, do you have multiple offers?
That's interesting.
I thought so too. I was like, why does that matter? But yeah, they ask.
Yeah. And see, one thing you can count on, they're like all these appraisers, every appraiser gets a copy of the contract, all addendums. They also have the listing, and on those appraisals, they'll put, okay, listed for 2 days at $590, sold for $650. So they know they have all the terms, so they see everything. You can count on that.
Can I ask, we're finding too, the appraisers are coming to the listing agents and asking them, were there any improvements, anything? And I've had even an appraiser send me a form to fill out. And so we were thinking that we were going to take that form and use it for other listings and fill out information and then to have that available for the appraiser when they come to appraise.
Probably
the
a
house.
really good idea. I think that's very thorough.
Yeah, I would say at least 5 years, any improvements in the last 5 years. I would certainly make the appraiser, this is on all appraisals, and make them aware of that. I'd go certainly back 5, because if they do 5, that could be an adjustment, positive adjustment.
But it just goes to show you that they're trying to be a lot more proactive. I mean,
Oh,
we
yeah.
all remember the days when it was like an adversarial relationship.
Right. And VA does have, they have something that's called the Tidewater Initiative. And as a matter of fact, the one that came in a little low, the appraiser, what that means, the VA appraiser starts looking at comps, can't get there. Then they send it back to the lender. Okay, you have 48 hours, listing agent, buyer's agent, better, whomever, to come back, show me the comps that you used to price that property. And then everybody scrambles, gets them in new comps, and then they go out and look at it. That is called the Tidewater Initiative. But then there's something else that's worked pretty well. Let's say it still comes in low. Okay, the appraiser wasn't satisfied. Then you can go directly to the VA, to like Roanoke, for what's called a reconsideration of value. And now, fortunately, we haven't had to do that because we're getting good appraisals. But I've talked to some lender friends, and they said, hey, that works also. Literally, veteran writes a letter, and they say they're pretty friendly. So just some food for thought if you do have the VA. Okay. Okay, some strategies from, and I think Cindy addressed this pretty well. Flexibility to move up date of acceptance, bookings, interest in property. Okay, let's take a look at this last sentence, measuring the viability and the strength of the contract offers. And once again, like probably you all see that, but what I've seen is, okay, the higher that EMD, the better it's going to be. But especially, well, for both parties, but listing agents, some of the listing agents that I've spoken with, they were pretty much adamant, we want the max EMD, earnest money deposit. One, it just probably shows strength. Two, if in this market, and things could change, but where a buyer is removing all contingencies, obviously, if you I know agents out there that they'll remove all contingencies and then try to make a very low EMD, and that's basically their put. Their buyer's put. Okay, you want to try and go for it. If it doesn't work out, you lose. This is what you lose. I've seen that rarely, but I have seen that. So on the other hand, if you're a listing agent, to protect your seller, may be a good idea to keep drilling down on getting the highest amount of the EMD deposit as possible. Like,
Carol, you have something to say?
I had an offer placed in Alexandria for a condo for a VA. 232,000 was the offer price, which was above. I put a $4,000 earnest money. We lost out because they wanted $10,000.
Wow.
$10,000 on 232,000.
You can buy something in that area for $232,000? I'm shocked.
Yeah, well, you can, but the condo fees will kill you.
Yeah, I know. I've seen that in Virginia Beach. You pay some low amount for what you're getting, and then you're paying $1,800 a month in HOA fees. Yeah, let's just sign up for that. So, so the other thing is, Dave, that you need to really drive home too, and I don't see it on here, is they've got to get fully approved for not pulling their credit report. You know, there's still lenders that do that. They just kind of look over whatever the buyer tells them and writes a letter. Oh my gosh. Well, how do you know? You got to call them and you got to find out if they're really acceptable. I can't believe I heard this the other day. I said, are you kidding me? You know, that's taboo.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and we have the couple slides down, like
Yeah.
later slides will cover that pretty quickly, but we will address the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. Okay, but that EMD seems to be big these days, and type of property, and it sounds like some of you are in the condo, like you're buying either you're listing condos or you're buying condos. We know if it's an FHA contract's got to be on the FHA approved list. Condo VA has to be on the VA approved list. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac take a good darn look at a condo questionnaire if the condo is not on the Fannie Mae approved list. So if you're ever listing a condo, that's what I would find out from the management company. What are some key points? Is there any major litigation? Are the delinquencies, like 60-day delinquencies, over 15%? Those are probably the two, I'd say two major, and then any deferred maintenance, but fortunately, Fannie Mae has a nice long list of approved condos. So in many cases, it'll be on the Fannie Mae list, and that's all you have to do is get the master insurance policy. If the condo is not on the Fannie Mae list, there's like a 64 questions that the management company has to offer. And because of that tragedy in Florida a couple of years ago, both Fannie and Freddie are bearing down on, which is also important, health and safety. But see, if it's on the list, no questions asked. If it's not on the list, they dig in. So if you're listing a condo, or obviously if you're buying a condo, those are things to check out. That's the first thing we do. As soon as we hear, okay, we've got the ratified contract, we search that list. And the hope is it'll be on the Fannie Mae list if it's a conventional contract, and end of story. But yeah, I would certainly, if you're dealing with condos, just be a little more careful about it. Plan unit development, single families, no issues.
Did you guys hear the governor of Florida? When you have a condo there as a seller, as an owner, you're paying for whatever needs to be done. No more Mr. Nice Guy. People don't like him right now at all because it went into law.
Wow, it's a lot.
Yeah. So in Florida, because of what happened, they are really, really, really putting a lot of pressure. They don't have a choice of deferring maintenance, is my understanding. Carol, I see your hand up.
You also, in a condo, I came across two, and we didn't see it, of course, until we got the condo docs, but the assessment, if they're doing some type, well, for example, they needed repairs in the garage, and so they were charging assessments and multiple other fees of over $4,000 to the buyer.
Wow.
Yeah, those are good points. If you're a listing agent, I'd get all that. If you're a buyer's agent, I would probably dig in, dig in for full disclosure purposes. But their assessments can pop up. Also, what pops up, especially in these gated communities, where I've seen, they'll have like an onboarding fee, like in order to keep it's called a capital contribution fee. So it's just not the prorated fees that you collect for that month and the next month that's gonna be expensive for your borrower. But then some of these communities, capital contribution, $1,000, $1,500. So it's always best to dig in, okay, what are the fees gonna be to my borrower? Any additional fees that are not considered standard, like that capital contribution fee. But that's more for the gated communities.
Hey, you all know about Aquia Harbor in Stafford. Anybody live there? They have transfer fees. They're a lot. So if you get
Yeah.
if you have a renter, transfer fee applies. So let's say you have a renter that changes it every year. Who's going to pay that $2,000? I forget what it is now, but it's really expensive.
It's over 2,500.
Oh my God. I mean, can
Yeah,
you
so-
imagine?
Yeah. So basically, yeah, that's where you just have to.
And for renters, not, I mean, I guess the
Yeah.
owner pays that, but who would want to run a property there?
Yeah. Now, this slide's, I think, interesting. Preparing the seller for the contract offer. And you see, probably many of you have already gone through it, done it, but impact of contingency removals. The number one, the financing contingency, that's interesting because quite frankly, this is what we're seeing is that, well, and this is what I'm hearing from my listing agent friends also, that a buyer will come in and remove the financing contingency. And they'll also put, okay, we're going to make a 20% down payment or 25% down payment on the contract. Sell price, down payment 25%. Without having the intent to put 25% down. But because they've removed the financing contingency, meaning no protection, then there's no need to go back, put in writing to ask the seller, hey, now we want to put 10% down. As long as they get to the table, everybody's happy, to the settlement table. So what the buyer's agent is doing, hey, we want to make this look like a strong contract. So we're going to remove the financing contingency, put some big down payment that the intent is not there. Now, obviously, a lender has got to make sure that, yeah, we can get them approved at 10% down or 5% down. But you see, there will be no need, once you remove the financing contingency, because you've already lost the protection, the next step, get to the settlement table. Are you following me on that? So they're showing strength. Obviously, the whole point of it, hey, we like this contract, let's accept the contract without the intent of putting it down. So see, and I've seen it in other markets. What happens, there's pressure on all of us to get darn creative because like for you all, you have a client, you've just one contract, two contracts, three contracts. Sooner or later, you try to figure out a way. Hey, how are we going to win this contract? That's one thing that we have seen. Obviously, we talked about the appraisal and the importance of comps, and unfortunately, what we've seen is the appraisals really haven't been an issue. Home inspection, in general, in this market, and you all tell me now, maybe it's changing. I have seen, I've seen a deal or two now with the home inspection contingency. About everything we've seen over the last 12 months, if you put a home inspection in there, you could figure that you were not going to win the contract. Are any of you seen anything differently on home inspections? Are you trying it? Are you just removing them? Anybody seen anything differently?
I've had a couple of home inspections, but I have a question about that financing you were talking about. So say a VA buyer they're no money down. And I removed the financing contingency and put in there that they're putting $50,000 down. Because I removed the financing, because I never cheated like this. I did.
Yeah, that's manipulating. Yeah, really it's manipulation. That's
Right.
what-
You know, I did it the way I was taught. And
Yeah.
so a VA buyer, $500,000 house, you're going to put down $50,000 and remove the financing contingency because you know your buyer can buy the house. However, I know they don't have $50,000 or want to put down $50,000, but as long as I get them to the closing table, that's all that matters.
Well, this is a couple things there's a decent bet that the listing agent may call the lender or go to the lender. Do they have the cash to close? But probably more importantly in that situation, if that so they put a big down payment, remove the financing contingency, it's a VA loan. If that appraisal comes in at the value comes in at the sale price, that buyer's going to be stuck. Then they're going to lose that 50,000 EMD because they removed the financing contingency. So they're putting that up for grabs. Now, if the appraisal comes in low, they can walk away. If it comes in $1 low, the borrower, the veteran or the active service person can walk, but if it comes in that value, they're stuck.
No,
So
I meant if they say list price 500,000, $50,000 down payment, earnest money deposit 10,000,
Oh,
and
okay.
put it as a VA loan with no financing, and you know, we get further down the road, the contract gets accepted, and we get further down the road, as long as the financing was removed, the buyer could change up the loan type
Yeah,
to 0
yes.
down.
Right. Okay, yeah, down payment. Now, then they would be subject to losing the $10,000 EMD.
For changing the
No, if they don't get approved.
Oh,
If they do
wow.
not get approved.
People were
and
sneaky.
and the appraisal comes in, then, so on a VA contract, when you remove that financing contingency, you're subject to lose the earnest money deposit if you don't go to settlement and the appraised value meets the sale price.
Right. I would never remove the financing without speaking with the loan officer. Hey, are you confident that, you know, they are going to
Sure.
be able to purchase this?
Yeah.
But see, I never thought outside of the box to do something like that.
Well, yeah, there's been some creative things. So
And we see lots of creative things, but what about VA? I know that they removed some of those. I mean, I haven't done a loan in years, so they removed some things that only the seller could pay for, and now they can pay for it. Are there any other things like that, using VA as an example, that could cause a problem?
yeah, I guess real quickly, the seller is not obligated. There has to be a termite. VA is the only agency that requires a termite inspection. So there does have to be a termite, and if it's well and septic, there does have to be, has to be inspection. But the seller doesn't even have to pay the termite report now. So basically, the seller is essentially off the hook.
Well, you
Or
only
con-
need the water test. You don't need the septic test for a VA. You only have to provide the water test that there's no
Yeah,
bacteria.
that's good point, but in general,
I mean, we do both, but
in general, they're gonna ask, I would think they're gonna ask for a septic.
I've
Okay.
never, and I've been doing 95% VA for 5 years.
Yeah, no, I mean, my point is the purchaser
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
will ask for a septic, most
Oh,
likely.
absolutely.
At least that's what we see. Okay, escalation addendums, in this seller's market, obviously, the higher incremental increases, the better for your seller, if you're the listing agent.
So can I ask a
Most-
question? Are a lot of people using the escalation clause? Sometimes I hear some people saying that the listing agent doesn't like that, and then some people say yes, they like that. I'm getting mixed reviews on those.
Yeah, I've seen a lot less escalation clauses over the last few months. Have seen a few. We just recently had a couple, but it was interesting. Both of those contracts, they did the escalation clause was not triggered, believe it or not, was not triggered. That means they didn't get any offers over the initial contract offer. But we are seeing less. We certainly are seeing less of those escalation clauses. So maybe the market just may be changing. Post occupancy still prevalent, and for months and months and months, that was, hey, that's a way to win the contract. Buyer side, give them a free post occupancy for years and years and years, right up through the last couple of years. That post occupancy, there was per day or per 30-day charge to the seller to occupy. In the last at least what I've seen last 24 months, that's how buyers were able to win contracts. Okay, we'll settle in 21 days, and we'll give you 59 days. It's like just a touch below 60 days, effectively to live there rent free. Take our contract. But post occupancy, this is for the seller. Keep the security deposit as a minimum, and that would be a good strategy as a listing agent. Okay. Why don't we do this? This might be a good stopping point. Why don't we take 10 minutes and then we'll come back and we'll maybe spend 10 minutes on maybe some suggestions on how to prepare an accurate comparative market analysis. So I'll see everybody back, let's say at 10:37.
When we get back, somebody needs to ask about his jacket. He has an American University jacket on.
Needs to ask about what?
He has an American University jacket on
Oh, okay.
that his daughter sent him, but there's a story behind it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he only has a minute to tell you what the story is, or we're gonna run out of time.
Well, I'm so curious about the next slide because that's always been an issue for me.
Well, let me tell you what. We have an appraisal class that Dave and Richard teach. We only do it twice a year, and it's next Thursday.
Oh,
I see.
well, I'll
Yeah.
have to block that out.
Yeah, 9:30 to 12:30. It's already up on the website. Obviously I've got everything done through August right now. And then I'm starting to work on getting September in. But I highly recommend you go to that because we're not going to be able to cover much time here.
Right.
This is an overview, but that is truly just about appraisal with a career appraiser, Richard Pruitt, who's also spent most of his years as managing broker or principal for an office for a company in Fredericksburg. And then, so he's got this wonderful blend. And then Dave, who is, you all don't know this, but he's also an underwriter as well as, you know, we say 30 plus years now because we're all old, lender, and in who's done, he's like one in the top 1% of the country on volume. I mean, this is somebody that, you know, really does really well in what he does. All my guys do. And anyway, so that's classes taught by both of them. It's really good. Like really people get it.
Well, while he's not here, I'm going to ask you a hypothetical question.
Okay.
I bought a house and it's a small little 914 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, half-acre lot.
Mhm.
It has a detached 2-car garage, but above it, they apparently when they built it, they used it for an office. But this was back in the 50s. Somewhere along the line, they sort of turned it into a semi apartment. I gutted it and made it a 1-bedroom apartment. Now, nobody knows that.
Mm.
And not that I'm looking to sell my house, but how would you value that? Because that's a whole
Well,
nother.
their first bag of worms is insurance coverage.
Oh, that I've got it insured.
Oh, good. And then you got the county to approve it.
No, because it was already there. The only thing that I did was redo the drive. Everything was up there except I
So the
put,
county had already, it's already in the tax records.
all it says is 2-car garage, and it states that there's something up above. They don't call it an apartment.
That's going to be a big deal to an appraiser. If I were you, because you know I did a lot of renovations, I did a lot of dumpy rehabs. Okay,
Uh-huh.
and in a fire, insurance could say they're not going to pay for anything on that building.
Uh-huh.
I would, depending on what county is it in.
Prince William.
Okay, they're a pretty good county office. I used to live there. I found them to be extremely helpful, maybe even overly helpful. I would go there and I would say, hey, I've got this property, tell them the story, and say, this is how I bought it. And then I just fixed up what was there. You know, they're going to pull out the tax record, you know, and look at it. I would see, they can't, you know, you're not going to take the drywall down, but I would definitely see if I couldn't get that correctly. Otherwise, they're just going to count it. They're just going to count it as a garage. That's it.
Yeah.
But if you get the county involved, you may end up paying a little more in taxes. But is the value worth it for saying that there's this other thing?
Right.
I wouldn't be afraid of going in there and talking to those people. I found them to be extraordinarily helpful.
Right, because I paid very little money for this place. It was a dump, literally. And so I'm also up in age, and I'm thinking I'm very close to Quantico.
Mhm.
And, you know, when I can't work anymore or minimal, that will supplement my income.
And remember, you got to claim it. If it's over $600 a year, you have to claim it.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I find that annoying. Okay.
Well, I do too, but
I mean, I really find that annoying. Okay. So I think that, you know, that there is, I think if you have that capability and it's on your property, I don't see any reason why, other than falling into the law guidelines, that, that should have to be that way. But anyway, call me crazy, but I just, the old
Oh,
rich get
I
richer.
have no HOA, so, I have nothing telling me
No,
except
you,
for
no,
the
yeah,
county.
yeah, right. And if it's not in the guidelines of an HOA, it can be done anyway.
Right,
Right. So, but I would definitely go to the county, because this is what you don't want to have happen. Insurance companies are in what business? To make money. They're not
right.
the least bit interested in, they're not going to pay a claim if they don't have to. And I've actually seen people in this same situation get claims denied for a fire because it wasn't in the county record. It
Gotcha.
wasn't approved. I would definitely go there. And if I remember correctly, it was a similar situation. This was years ago. And that was even when they were more loosey-goosey about coverage. So now I can't even imagine, but I would take the weenie approach and really go for the gusto and see what you can do to get that approved.
Yeah, because I'm sure that's gonna increase the value of my property.
But not by much. It's still a garage, but it's an improved garage. And I'm not sure, what's in there. Is there a bathroom?
Yeah,
Bathroom and a kitchen and everything. So, and then they're not approving, the second kitchen in a lot of cases. So I would definitely just play, I need you. I don't know what to do with this. I'm getting older. I'm thinking that maybe I'll use it as a little one bedroom apartment, and so that I can live when I'm retired, just what to do.
right.
And you'll get some young little sweetie pie that is going to help you, because that's just the way they are. They're really nice. They used to be really nice in Prince William. I mean, like, really helpful. I find that those folks in those departments just are. They are in where I live too,
Okay.
and just very helpful.
But it does, I mean, it wouldn't increase like turn around and make this a 4-bedroom, 2-bath property.
No, it's a separate.
Okay.
It's a separate. It's all about being separate. No, it won't make your primary property anything else, other than you've got this separate garage with a separate apartment. It's detached, you know what I mean, from your house. I've never seen that happen, what you just suggested, ever. And I know a lot of people that do this. My neighbors behind me have a garage with a full apartment at the top. They don't rent it out or anything, but it's there.
Yeah,
But the people that did it initially were builders, so they got it all approved.
yeah, this was back, I guess. Well, the house was built in 56. I'm not exactly sure when the garage was built.
Yeah. And they understand that, you know what I mean? That's the great thing about an older property versus one that somebody just plopped up because, they had an attitude about ever calling the county, and it was just done, in the last 5 years. You've got something older there, which is justified in A, asking questions, and B, seeking help
Okay.
to make it right. I'd be more interested in making sure it's insurable with no exceptions
Yeah,
than
Yeah.
anything else. Okay.
Right,
Yeah.
good, Jim. Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
We've
10:37.
been having class while you've been gone. And by the way, you don't have a lot of time to finish this up.
Yeah,
Hey, is
no,
anybody going to ask Dave about the question?
how about your jacket?
Yeah, we want to know about your jacket.
So Cindy forced you to ask that question.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah, no, just real quickly, I did go to American University. My daughter has now a friend that she went to UVA with that's doing something at American, working for American. So she buys me for Father's Day, like you name it, she buys me some American University paraphernalia. When I graduated, like I really, until maybe last year, 2 years, I just never went back. Because I did go to another school. I went to University of Louisville. But at any rate, I did go back and at No, I was almost gonna say it, I'm not gonna say it. At a many year reunion, I met some people I hadn't seen in like 40 years.
We call it 30 plus, right? I mean, that's what we do. We just everything. Also, he was a big basketball star. Let's not forget about his early days in college.
Woohoo!
Uh-huh. Yep.
It's interesting, Dave, because I worked for American University for like 10 years.
Wow.
Well, it was,
That was
yeah,
in the 80s, 90s in the purchasing department.
Wow.
It's a nice,
yes.
beautiful school.
Yeah, I lived on campus for 4 years, and just going back last summer, I went back and some changes, like some big changes, but really pretty cool. I tend to appreciate American more than I ever have for some reason. A lot of the people that I went to school with doing pretty well, so they get a good education, and I got acquainted with when I went there, like growing up in Fairfax County. When I went to American, it was like a new universe. You're talking Long Island, New England, like it's all about the North. Very little about Washington, D.C., but it was interesting. It was interesting.
That's very interesting. I didn't know.
But at any rate, let's take a look at some guidelines for the comparative market analysis. And most of you probably have this down pretty well, but these are just some tips, some advice for you. Stay as close to the subject property. Location is probably most important. Stay as close to the subject property as possible. Those are just guidelines. If you're in an urban area and you have to go over 1 mile, the appraiser could probably fit that in. Suburban, if they have to go over 3, and rural, we've done business in Middleburg, the Middleburg part of Loudoun County, and we've gotten comps from Haymarket, like 10-acre comps from Western Prince William County. So you could cross those lines. So location. But a location's important. The best comp would be the comp next door that sold yesterday. That's the same model as your model. Like if you're thinking about it logically, that is the best comp. But then you branch out, you keep extending your universe from there. Bracketing. And this is like Fannie, Freddie, underwriters, VA, they are looking, they want literally in all the characteristics, this is what they like to see, but especially sell price. They like to see one higher, one low. It's just called bracketing. We've had plenty of appraisals that have come in where they've all been higher, where comp 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 have been higher. Still worked, but that's something that we have had some reviews where they've come back. We want to find a comp that's you have all higher. Find a comp that's lower than the subject property. So something to think about. Bracketing. A gross living area as a ballpark within 20% of the subject property. So if you have a 3,000 square foot home, and we're talking about above grade square foot home, 3,000, you may go to 2,600, or maybe 25 to 26 on the low end, probably on the high end, 30 some, like whatever, a fifth of 3,000, maybe 35, 3,600. So somewhere between 20, if you have a 3,000, somewhere between 2,500 and say 3,500 as a ballpark. And that's above grade. Now, bathroom counts tend to be more valuable above grade than say a bedroom. And this is what has come up over the last, we've seen a few appraisers where the subject property would have 5 bedrooms, larger properties, 5 bedrooms instead of 4 bedrooms. In general, in these times, the appraiser is not going to put too much value on that fifth bedroom. They will not put too much value on it. Below grade, total finished room count is the focus, not above grade square footage. So if we're above grade, your biggest pop, your biggest adjustment will be the difference. Like we said, okay, you have a 3,000 square foot home subject, you get a 2,600 comp one, that's 400 square feet. If it's say a 500 sale price, most likely the appraiser may do $50 a square foot. That's 400 times 50. What that's $20,000 adjustment. So your pop above grade will be the difference in the gross living area. And then what the appraisal, for instance, like normally what we see anywhere from maybe 500 to 600, even to 700, somewhere around $50 per square foot from the appraiser. When we get to 800 plus, you may see closer to 60 to 75. If we're at maybe $1.5 million plus, they may go to 100 per square foot. But that's where you're going to get your bigger adjustments, is above grade living area. Are you following me on that? And you probably a lot of you already realize this. Below grade, it's not the size, it's the finished room count. So below grade, it's the finished room count and not the size. And you, like if we had to ballpark it, if you did a bathroom, $5,000, like cookie cutter, assuming it's not a $2 million home or $1.5 million home, we see many bathroom adjustments, $5,000. So lower level. Okay, also when we're talking above grade, and I mentioned this, the bedroom count, maybe not as important as the bath count. We talked about lower level finished room count versus total finished square footage. Finished room count more important. Similar properties, common sense, try to have one comp with a similar design and one comp with a similar bathroom and bedroom count, especially if you do happen to have a one bathroom subject property, which would be unusual, but in general, most of appraising is common sense. Now, these appraisers, they take classes. For instance, there's a system that they're supposed to use that, in general, they ballpark it. This is on every characteristic. In order to come up with an adjustment, they're supposed to come up with what's called a matched pair analysis on every characteristic, meaning location, meaning view. And what they're supposed to do, this is what's in their guidelines. For instance, just a real quick example. A couple of years ago, I don't know if you're familiar with River Creek in Loudoun County. It's a nice community, a gated community. It's on some of it is on the Potomac River. Okay, so a couple of years ago, we had a townhouse, maybe it was 100 townhouses. One group of townhomes was across the street. Their view was another group of townhouses. That was their view. Across the street, similar design, same model. Their view is a golf course, Potomac River. Okay, cookie cutter homes. The appraiser was trying to come up with, okay, what a view adjustment. Okay, same model. How do we do a view adjustment? So what the appraiser did, they went back like 1.5 to 2 years, found in that similar time frame a home that backed to other townhomes and a home that backed to the water, and they saw the difference in the sale price assuming the difference had to be a view adjustment. So that's how they're supposed to do it on every characteristic. But quite frankly, we would never get an appraiser back if they had to do all that homework every time. So they tend to ballpark. But that's the way it's supposed to work. Or let's just say maybe a simpler explanation. You have a row of townhouses, very similar. One has a deck, the other one doesn't have a deck. Same thing, they would go back and find two similar, one with a deck, one without a deck. Compare those sale prices. If it's $6,000 higher, hey, let's do $6,000 for an adjustment. That's the way it's supposed to work. But at any rate, like I said, they're very busy. They tend to ballpark it, and it quite frankly works out. Okay, any questions on the appraisers? Like probably a lot of you have that down anyway. That would be my bet.
What about updates? What if
Important, a good point.
said-
Last 5 years, anything in the last 5 years, I would make sure that appraiser is aware of it. Any update within the last 5 years, very good point. That's important. So to have that, if you're the listing agent, because they will look at that and they may make adjustments. Okay, then, this is what we've just gone over. Relevant comps, it's all about comps that make sense. We just talked about, good question from Carol, list of all improvements made by owners, including the cost of these improvements. Point that out. I would go back 5 years. Obviously, no brainer, make the home show ready. And this last sentence, that's just, you all have, you wouldn't be where you are if you didn't have common sense. Do not follow the appraiser around. Okay, we all know that.
I'm sorry, how do you know if you're gonna list a property and within the past 5 years, they've put a new roof, new AC, they've totally updated the kitchen? How do you know how to price that?
I would try to find a comparable that states updated kitchen, new roof, somewhere in that vicinity. And that would be your best comp. Like you gotta find a comp with that, if you can find it. Maybe easier said than done, but that's how you would do it. In order to, okay, how do I adjust it? I mean, obviously it's gonna be some type of a positive adjustment, especially these days with roofs, because insurance companies, and I'm sure probably all, have any of you been bitten by the insurance bug here where they're raising your insurance because your roof is 15 years or older? Any of you have that? Have seen that? Literally, this is literally, either it was last year or the year before, I get something from Nationwide for the home that we own. The letter said they sent a drone, not a clone, a drone out, took a picture of the roof, it needs to be replaced. Now, can you believe that? And then I called the agent that I work with, like, what on earth is going on? And they say, oh, look, I own a home. They did the same thing to me. They're doing that across the board. A drone. So pretty incredible. But this is what we've seen, that they have come back to the state agencies because of these climatic events. And across the board, we are seeing higher insurance prices. But also, you can still shop that around. And that's what we do, like for our borrowers. They shop. If they're happy, we're happy. If not, we find a couple insurance brokers that'll go to A-rated companies and see, because, quite frankly, there are times when we have to have, okay, that insurance payment cannot be over X amount of dollars or we won't get the loan approved. I mean, like any lender, in this market, sometimes you go to the edge and then you have to figure it out. But think about it, raising the price of a home in order to accommodate seller contribution for closing costs may lead to appraisal issues. In the last couple of years, that's never been an issue. Tools to sell more listings, okay.
Could I ask a quick question,
Sure,
please,
sure,
before you
sure,
go
sure.
on?
Sure, go
Um,
ahead.
So she was asking about the updates to a home, but I just like to have your opinion on in some of the newer home communities, the differences, like in terms of what appraisers look at and how much weight they put on, like the architectural details, because some of the homes they have, all the bells and whistles, like the coffered ceilings or, a lot of crown molding. And then you have some others in the same community where they didn't do that. And so it's really just like an aesthetic, but it's upgraded. I mean, you see it accounted for when you look at a new build and they purchase, it's additional in the purchase price. But in terms of doing like a comparative analysis, how much, like, what do they look like? Do they even consider that, or?
In general, I do think it would be, I mean, obviously treatments are important, and upgrades are important. This is where you'll see it. You'll see it in what's called a condition adjustment on the appraisal, and that's where they'll make it. Now, if it's like a 1 or 2 year old property and you're using that as a comp, you can count on a fairly sizable condition adjustment, 30,000, because standard fare, the subject property, if it has some age on it, they're gonna like average. Average would be like that condition adjustment. They would call it like average is 3. A 1 or 2 year home, that could be what's called a 1, and then there'll be a sizable condition adjustment. So they will take that into account under, or could take it in under. So it could be condition adjustment, most likely condition adjustment and age adjustment. Now, just another quick thing. Next week on the 18th, we're having a 3-hour appraisal course. I'm not an appraiser, of course, but I have a pretty decent feel for it. I do the lender end of it, but there's an appraiser that's been doing it forever, very bright, that he'll be conducting the class, and I'll be chiming in, helping out with, okay, how does Fannie Mae look at it? How does FH look at it? How does VA? But he conducts the course, and it's a 3-hour course on the 18th next week. It's like 9:30 to 12:30. So that may help also in like condition adjustments, age adjustments. But hopefully I helped answered that question for you. So financing tools, closing costs, seller lender, home warranties. In this market, I'd say not very important to the seller because they don't need to. Financing options to buyers, that we'll go over some of this and some of these loan programs. This is what Cindy alluded to a little earlier, and you all know this, especially if you're a buyer's agent, but then also obviously you're a listing agent, you want to protect the seller. You at least want your borrower or buyer to make application and send in, upload the supporting docs, meaning asset, income. The lender runs a credit report. A lender will run it through an automated system. When a lender runs it through an automated system, that's very strong, because this is what that means. Like Fannie Mae has an automated system. Freddie Mac has an automated system. Assuming there's data integrity, meaning you figured out the pay, you figured out their assets. Assuming there's data integrity, if a lender gets an automated underwriting approval, unless there's fraud, like down the road, you close the loan, you sell it to Fannie Mae, unless there's fraud, the lender will not have to buy the loan back. Now, in our area, fortunately, we get in general, most of the times, darn good candidates. But, and then the whole point of it is when an underwriter sees an automated approval, they relax because you have the automated approval and they know that Fannie and Freddie are not going to tear it apart. So a pre-approval with automated underwriting approval is, in my opinion, would be, it depends upon the listing agent also, but something to think about. So basically, a pre-qual, that's all a pre-qual letter is, just an opinion without documentation. And in general, in this market, I doubt it that you're going to see many pre-qual letters as a listing agent. I would doubt that. And we talked about the pre-approval. And you all probably already do this. Now, like what I do as a lender, and I'm sure your favorite lenders do the same thing. When an agent that I'm working with submits a contract, and quite frankly, I am right there. Like I'll call that agent, listing agent, like to reinforce on behalf of our borrower and to reassure them, hey, this is going to go to closing on time, or to answer any questions that they may have. It's just like the one that we did the other day, 3% down and a Virginia housing loan. Of course, the listing agent, as a matter of fact, before I could call her, she called me, but had questions about it. Okay, what does this really mean? So we went over it with her, like borrowers, high credit scores, one job, you name it, our borrower's strong. Then went over, okay, what does this mean to your seller? Very little to nothing. It's innocuous. They will have one form to sign during the road. It's called an affidavit of seller. And if that sale price was $725, we'd have something maybe to think about. It's really matters for homes because see, the Virginia housing will not go over $725 sale price. And they'll add in vacant areas to that sale price. So on a Virginia housing, if you have a $725 sale price and an unfinished lower level, that'll tip it over the $725 because then you have to put $15 per square foot. That's the only time an affidavit of seller ever matters. So it's just like going through the motions. This one was much, much lower. So explain that to the listing agent, went over some things, and then she was okay. So the buyer's agent, our agent, did the same thing, kept reassuring the listing agent, hey, this is going to work. So between, quite frankly, Lynn, our strong borrower, we didn't create the borrower, he was strong, and some of the information I was able to give, that's just called teamwork. When it boils down to it, it's just called teamwork. Okay. This is just some facts on home warranties, and this was done a couple of years ago. And like we said, maybe a decent idea for a buyer if you're waiving a home inspection. Sellers don't need to do it. Now, this is a sample of, okay, now also just another thing too. This works better in a market where, okay, the seller and the buyer's agent, they're working together to make the deal work. Now, quite frankly, there were many years when something like this, hey, great idea. The last couple of years, no big deal because the seller didn't need to do anything. They get 5 contracts in. But this is when there's cooperation. Okay, we have this buyer, they want to buy this home, but they can't qualify. How do we get them to qualify and not hurt your seller too much? So this example maybe one day will be more realistic, or even today, depending upon the situation, even could be today, depending upon the situation. But it just says use this option to attract more buyers without lowering the sale price. Now, that doesn't mean the seller's not going to net less. It's just without lowering the sale price. So when that next property comes up, and so it records at the 500 sale price. So to record at 5. So one example, lowered by $10,000. Okay, we're assuming 20% down. That means the seller's paying effectively 2.5% out of their pocket to lower it from 500, say, to 490. Okay. Okay, so basically, the whole point of this is, we'll go to the next slide. If the seller uses that, instead of lowering the sell price by $10,000, if they would pay for the borrower a couple points for the borrower to buy their rate down, the borrower will qualify at a lower payment, save more money over the life of the loan. It records the sell, it'll record at 500,000, everybody's happy. So it's just making the most out of that 2.5% of the sell price. Enables the borrower to qualify. The borrower will save more money over the life of the loan. Seller still sells at 500,000. So the whole point of it is, if you're working with the buyer, trying to help them out, okay, make it work. You're better off lowering the interest rate than lowering the sell price. That's the whole point of it. And these are some of the savings when they went with the lower interest rate. And see, then we did a comparison. The seller, to accomplish the same goal, the seller would, instead of lowering it by 10,000, they would have had to lower the sell price by 33,698 to make that same deal. So just food for thought for you. And basically this is, this is what's called a 2-1 buy down. Many of you are probably familiar with it. It's really for our borrowers where, hey, my income or the spouse's income, we know is going to be increasing, but year one may be pretty hard. Year two may be pretty hard. That's where a 2-1 buy down may be effective. The only thing about these 2-1 buy downs that it's quite frankly a little annoying is that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac require the seller to pay the entire buy down. And in a seller's market, who's going to do, it's harder to do that. But that's the only little quirk. Could be a good program, but if you see this, in order to buy it down in general, year one by 2%, year two by 1%, it's going to cost 2 3/8% of the loan amount. So that's, relatively expensive, and the seller has to pay it. And in this market, sellers have, we are seeing some seller leniency now, but nothing, but very rare that this would happen. There are renovation loans. We have a 2-hour course on the FHA 203K loan and what's called the Fannie Mae renovation loan. So you can do a conventional renovation loan and you can do an FHA renovation loan. And all this means is that a home that's in disrepair, you can put a contract on it and settle on it without making the repairs. So that's all you do is you take, okay, they're asking 500,000. It's going to need 100,000 in repairs. Your offer price is still the 500,000. you're gonna show the lender, hey, it needs 100,000 repairs. We're going to loan, if this were an FHA loan, we would take 96.5% of the 600,000. Put that about 100,000 in an escrow account. Okay, you have 6 months, so we're gonna settle on the loan. And then we're going to allow the borrower and their consultant and their contractor in the next 6 months to complete the repairs. Less popular because those, quite frankly, take 60 days because you have to have an approved contractor. You need a HUD consultant. And in this market, yeah, like right before COVID, we did a few of these. In the 90s, I was doing maybe 3 or 4 a month. In the late 80s, early 90s. But it's all about what the market will accept. It's something to keep up here, and we do have a class on it, a 2-hour class on it. It's really pretty interesting. And see, probably what's more important, I would say, to take this class. This could help you because they have these digital online like repair toolkits. But for you, like if you're vying for a listing and it's a dated home, you may go to the seller, you get your online digital, you show them, okay, this could be another way to sell your home. If it's a dated home and we're in a market where a dated home may be on the property well, give them one more way of selling their home. They may never use it. Even in a good market, they may never use it, but what they may do is say, hey, this listing agent came up with something that the previous agent did not come up with. So just food for thought, like something to think about when you're vying for a listing agent on a dated property. And then, see, there are conventional renovation loans similar to FHA loans. And it just depends on the conventional loans can work better with higher credit scores. There's less scrutiny on a conventional loan. You do not need a third-party HUD consultant, which may be in the borrower's best interest anyway. But conventional loans you can do. And it's just like you might say, well, for instance, on these FHA loans, you can literally get a renovation loan up to their loan limits, like $1,184,000. Literally, you could go to the tip top with 3.5% down. On a conventional loan to get to that 1 million, you would need 5% down, but not huge. And once again, we have a 2-hour course on that.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Are all of the loans assumable?
Okay, the FHA VA loans are assumed.
Okay,
Okay, so there's still that FHA loan is assumed. Now,
okay.
standard fare, you go through the servicer to be approved. But yeah, so basically, but see, these are this is where I think this is where as I see it, the focus is you have to, as a realtor, as a lender, and you all, I'm sure, do your job great, but as a lender, what I try to do is, okay, let's figure out a way to make it work in our borrower's best interest. So does that mean raising a credit score from 719 to 721 to get a little bit of an edge, maybe not great, maybe a quarter of a point of the loan amount, say a $400,000, better than nothing. But where you, our whole thought, and I'm sure your favorite lender does the same thing. Let's put our borrower in the best position to buy this home and to gain every advantage that we're capable of. And that's what, quite frankly, what we try to do. It's just like, just real quickly, the other day, last week, we had Now, this was a mortgage broker. And they worked hard, they tried hard on it. They had to send it to a lender. It was an FHA loan. Uh, uh, their lender didn't like it. So it was supposed to close last week. They couldn't figure a way to get the loan approved. So an agent that I work with pretty regularly, like sends over the appraisal to me, the situation, and believe me, very complicated. And the whole thing was, okay, they could not qualify at a 6.5% rate. That was part of it. And they had no other money to bring to the table. The seller was already making a $10,000 concession. It was like a $430 sell price. Seller already given 10,000, and that's a lot. That is a lot. Okay. Now, this is so, obviously, if I could pitch in, I'll pitch in. So he sent it over. What do you think? Is there anything you think we could do? So we sent over the appraisal. The price was $420. The price was $430. So $430. The appraisal came in, believe it or not, at $462. Okay. The appraisal comes in at $462. So you couldn't qualify at 6.5. So what we did is, okay, let's raise the sale price to, from $430 to $440, have the seller pay back $20,000 in credits. And because you can go 6% on an FHA loan, that's $24,000. And then we lowered the rate from 6.5 to 5.75. Of course, we had to charge some points, but at least that gave us the hope, because now we had the ratios where we could get it through the automated system. And that's part of the process. Get it through the automated system, people get more comfortable with it. But this is what my point is that, it's like the whole deal is that you try to figure out ways to make it work. And sometimes it's time consuming, sometimes it doesn't. But, this is where you need to scrutinize it. And it's just like, because probably a mortgage broker to the lender sometimes, and there are plenty of mortgage broker loans that work, but on this one, the lender could have, there were other reasons why. It's a very complicated loan, but that is a possibility. Does that happen a lot? No, it doesn't. But as long as the purchaser, so if you sell price comes in higher, as long as the purchaser is gaining, not losing on it, you can raise those prices. Okay, now, see this seller, the first thing that was going to come up, well, the seller's net, it's not going to be another 10,000 because they have to pay transfer taxes, realtor commissions, whatever. So what our agent did was went back, okay, they went back and tried to work. He said they were going to work it out with the seller. I don't know if they did, but bottom line, seller accepted. So hopefully we can get this loan, and they extended the contract another week or so. So, so the whole point of it is dig in. Like, that's our thing. Dig in, try to make it work for our clients, our realtors, and our borrowers. Okay, this is something in a seller's market. An FHA, now we know FHA is 3.5% down. So basically, if you put 14,000 down, you have 13 in closing cost, and the seller pays half of that, say 7,000. And we're doing the FHA option with the Virginia housing, you can literally get into this property with a zero investment. Now, theoretically, on a Virginia housing property with, let's say, without any seller's help. And see, this is just something to think about. So Virginia Housing has a first and second trust program, assuming your credit score is 680 or more. So if you have, this is like food for thought. Many renters don't believe they're buyers. And the reason they don't believe they're buyers, they have a possibility of buying that first home. It's not because of their income and it's not because of their credit, or they wouldn't be renting. Because obviously the management company did a credit report, they look at their income. What they don't believe they have is the investment. Okay, so you have a borrower or you have a tenant, they're about ready to write a lease, or okay, $3,000 rent, $3,000 security deposit. That totals $6,000. You do a Virginia housing first and second, 400,000 to 500,000 sale price, 680 credit score. Your total investment may be $6,000 to $7,000. So if you can sit down with all these renters, it could be your friend's daughter, son, whatever. Maybe you can get like rental logs for people who are leaving in 6 months, tenants or 12 months or whatever. But I do believe, because I see it a lot. Over the years, I've seen it a lot, where we have agents that'll bring people, and that's before COVID, when they used to bring people to the office. And literally, it would be like a light bulb popping up. Oh, yeah, maybe I can get a handful of thousand from my parents. I thought it would take 20% down to get in, 20,000 or whatever. So just more food for thought. If they're going to rent and put up $6,000, why not buy for that same $6,000 to $7,000, assuming a 680 credit score? I think there are a lot of renters out there. I know we had a young, aggressive realtor who just started in the business, worked for Samson, had a mentor. He was as green as the grass. Started in April. This was way back when, 218, 219. We went over this program. Of course, he had the benefit of very articulate, but also was Spanish speaking. So he would sit at his mentor's open houses. These people would come in, he would bring them in. Between April and December, we closed 4 Virginia housing loans on the first and seconds. So it's possible. It's possible. It was a little easier for one, the market 218, was easier. 2, he communicated pretty easily. 3 was, out in the right price range. But my point is, you may know people that just don't believe they have the investment to buy, and you do a Virginia Housing First and Second Trust Program, you could turn that around for them. And then these are some of the examples, because Virginia Housing has an FHA program.
Dave, this
Yeah.
is Lynn. Can I ask a question before you move to that slide?
Sure.
What is the interest rate on the second trust?
Same
How's the factor
Same
in?
as the first trust, 30-year fixed. Good point, though. They've got when you borrow in a second trust, that 1.5% of the sale price, you have to pay that over a 30-year period. So it's not free. But it gives them 1.5% of the investment. You see in 217, 218, we would go out to Warrenton, 500, 496 sell price. We do first and second, seller to pay $6,000-7,000. They come, our borrower come in, get their earnest money deposit back. Harder now because you have stingier sellers, but still not a huge investment. But yes, it is a loan. It's just like CFH or Virginia Housing also has a grant, free money, 2% of the sale price, but they're not going to get in for $7,000 or $6,000. It'll be higher, but it is free money and there's no second trust to pay them. So it just depends upon what works best for your borrower.
Is it hard to qualify first-time home buyers for a second trust though, when you're already gonna have a first trust? I mean, what's
Well, see, as long as the ratios work, they're a good question, but as long as the ratios work. So yeah, obviously a little higher because, there's another $75 a month or $85 a month so they have to be able to carry it, of course. But what we do see, a lot of young people do pretty well in income, but they don't have any savings. But so it can work. It can work. And it's something to get your borrower enthused about and maybe thinking about, hey, we're pretty darn close. Maybe we could scratch up another couple $1,000s and do it. Okay, and this is the same, there's a Virginia Housing Conventional, Virginia Housing FHA. Normally, you're going to go conventional as a rule of thumb when your credit scores are high. Let's say if you have 720 and higher, you can probably look at a conventional more than an FHA. Virginia Housing. The VA, we spent a lot of time today on the VA, so this is obvious. 500 sell price, 0 down. If you had a willing seller, no investment. Okay, but this is interesting. I'll just touch on this and we'll move on. This is what's interesting, is that the seller can pay all closing costs, up to 2 discount points, all prepaids and escrows. Okay, they've already paid that. Then if you look at the bottom of this, okay, it's a 500 sell price. Then you take 4% of 500, that's 20,000. You back out prepaids and escrows. Say that's 2,000 to 3,000. The seller then could pay, if they choose to, $17,000 for anything else, like pay down debt, student loans, credit card debt. Believe it or not, we did those late 80s, early 90s to make deals work. And this is an FHA option if the seller doesn't pay any closing costs. And we talked about this earlier in the session. And I think we mentioned when you're listing or buying a condo, I would say just do a little more investigating. Investor ratio, that counts if it's an investor buying your property. And normally investor ratios, other than if it's an FHA loan, they're still looking for the 50%. But on a conventional loan, they do not look at what the investor ratio is. Delinquency ratios, 15% of the units over 60 days, that's a problem. Major litigation, that's a problem. So could be a problem. So these are all the things to sort out if you're a listing agent or if you're a buyer's agent. Okay, you all know better than me how to get the word out on your listings, but Cindy had alluded that earlier when she spoke about that. And these are some of the tools to get the word out. in categories of people to utilize. But I do like that, and we have a first-time home buyers class where we spend a good 25 minutes on the Virginia Housing Program. So I do like that, and like I said, we just got 2 in the last week, Virginia housing contracts. So the realtors are starting, at least, that just may be, who knows, is it a trend or is it just a one-off? But at least we got a couple in, meaning they're listening and accepting first-time home buyer offers, which is good. Some of the educational materials that you could use and feedback forms that Cindy had mentioned earlier. Some of the things that you could do that may help: open house flyers, interested borrowers, educational opportunities, following up. You all know about the value of following up. Once again, following up is the key. Making the commitment. And what are you going to implement for your listing strategy? And that's about, see, that was a lot. That's a lot to cover. Probably a good 2 or 3 2-hour courses in what we covered today. So the whole point of it is, quite frankly, try to come up with some ideas. What I like to do, can we come up with some ideas that may trigger new business for you? I do think if you take some of these courses, could help, it may help. But at any rate, a lot of good questions. Appreciate the participation. And if you do have any questions, because obviously, a lot of you have your favorite lenders, and I could respect that, appreciate it. But if you do have any questions, don't worry about if you have a loan or not. Give me a call. After hours is fine. And
You're going to send them the PDF of the
I'll send them the
PowerPoint,
PDF.
so yeah.
But in general, and this is no bull, if I'm up, I will take the phone call. And it doesn't matter what day it is.
It's true. We think he's a workaholic.
Whatever the day it is, if I'm up, I'll take the phone call. So, the bottom line is, we hope this was valuable for you, and good luck to you.
All right. So we're done. Get your CE package to me. If you didn't get it, look in your junk and spam, and then email me and let me know you didn't get it. But look in your junk and spam first, because everything was sent out right after the break. Thanks, Dave.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Take
Enjoy
care,
it.
everybody. Have a good day.
You too.
Goodbye.